Hi everyone, we're back with the 2020 Biz Kickstart event, and I'm joined with Anna in the virtual studio, who's going to talk to us all about branding and how to be irresistible with our branding. So Anna, say hey and tell people a bit about you and how you got involved with the branding world.
Hello, Mike. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. So I've been involved with branding in some shape or form for quite a few years now. I've been running businesses, sometimes as a side hustle, sometimes now full-time for 10 years. And through those 10 years, I've had different businesses. One of the businesses has been my photography business, and that's kind of evolved over the years, and I've branded it in different ways over the years. And I guess really that's how I've come to branding, to how I help people with their branding today. As I used to originally just do family shoots with people, so children family shoots, that's what I knew. And then when I went full time, I had to introduce other types of photography because my family shoots were very seasonal. So I started to add in headshots and then personal branding. And I'd find that when ladies came along to me for the personal branding shoots, I'd start to ask them some questions on, what their brand was, the look and feel, who their ideal clients were. And a lot of them had come along for a shoot with me, and particularly if they just started up their business and they wanted like a headshot for their website, they'd come along and they hadn't really thought through what a brand was. They thought that a brand was perhaps a logo and a headshot. So that's kind of when I started to give them a lot more advice, and it's kind of evolved from there. So I'm now a branding strategist and photographer.
It's good that you started out sort of as a result of people asking you questions as well, because a lot of people, they sort of go, oh, I'm going to be a branding expert, but sometimes it's hard to know that there's enough demand for it, because there are loads of people out there that do branding, loads of photographers out there that do this sort of thing. But it's interesting that you didn't really just go into it. You went off the demand, which was pretty cool. So talk to us a bit about what a brand actually is, because you mentioned that it's not just a logo and a headshot. Now that may or may not have been true sort of, I don't know, just pick a number, 5 years ago. It might have been a bit more real then, before social media started taking over our lives. But how has branding changed? What's the real answer to what a brand is in 2020?
So I think a brand is a person, a business, or an organization that has a really well-defined purpose and message. And this may have evolved over time, but it's really at the core of who they are, what they do, and how they do it. And branding is, I think, how they communicate that message to their ideal clients and their tribe of people. And whether that's how they communicate it verbally, like we're doing now, so whether people, are chatting on their YouTube channel, on podcasts, whether they're chatting to people in real life at events, on stage, or whether that's communicating visually through, the colors that they choose for their brand, or the imagery that they choose, or the photography that they have done. It's everything that is weaved through their business, and all of this creates a feeling with their ideal clients. And I'm just checking, what was it? Yeah, so strong brands, I think, really create an emotional connection with their clients, and it's a really useful thing to have in your business toolkit.
Yeah, I like when you said that that it was about how it makes people feel. I hear this quote all the time, is that people don't remember what you do for them, they remember how you make them feel. You always remember the feeling side, and there's a lot there about, I could get a bit geeky on it if you want, but it's the feeling that lasts the longest, because emotions are wired they're wired into our heads more than what actions are. So it's interesting that the brand can do that. I always find that sometimes it can be a case of we don't realize what the feeling is, because we link it to what we do a little bit too soon, if that makes sense. Like we go, oh, well, I'm going to go out speaking and that's going to make people feel a certain way about what my brand is. Well, it's hard to know. It's hard to, from our perspective as like the experts and the people that do these things, it's very hard to try to almost assume how we make people feel. Does that make sense? Is that something that you come across? Like the brand is this way, but based on what they're doing, you're actually making them feel a different way.
Yeah, completely. So I've come across brands in the past that their branding, so I'd not actually heard them speak. So this was based purely on their visuals, and their visuals were very, very feminine, actually very feminine colors. And to me, it came across as all very airy fairy and fluffy. But then when I heard the person speak, you know, it wasn't fluff. She knew exactly what she was on about.
Right.
So it's sometimes I think, you know, there can be a disconnect. So you know, visuals are really important. You know, if the first time you come across a brand is purely through the visuals, you know, colors, there's color psychology. So, you know, different colors can create feelings in people. So red, for example, it's actually an appetite, it increases the appetite. So if you think about McDonald's, like boxes that they pack their chips in, you know, they're red. So colors are, you know, can have a massive impact. Not that you'd be aware of it, you know, consciously, but subconsciously, colors can have a big impact on how you feel about a brand. And then obviously, like the communication, if you can see somebody speaking and talking, then you can pick up, you know, how they are as a person, their vibe, their energy. So if you want to come across in a certain way to people, then you can influence that through, you know, through the visuals. So your colors, the imagery that you use, your copywriting, and then also verbally, how you show up in the world, the energy that you have.
Right, because it's interesting you say that, because you're making me hungry with your talk anyway. It's making me peckish. Might have to go out and have a McDonald's later.
Yeah. It's also red's energy. I mean, red has, and it's different connotations in different cultures as well. So in Asia, you know, brides wear red at a wedding, and you know, it's used for funerals in other countries. So again, you can kind of think about, you know, big brands, you know, really pay attention to the colors. You know, some people are just color experts and will go in and talk to big brands about their colors. But energy, red has an energy to it. But it's good against, I'm a photographer, so I always think about colors and think about backgrounds. So when I'm shooting people, I think about the background colors and the colors that someone might be wearing. And then you're looking at, you know, complementary colors, and complementary colors are opposite each other on the color wheel, and they can make images really pop. And then you've got I can't even remember the word now. Oh my goodness, I teach this. It will come back to me.
It's all right.
The colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, and they create a sense of harmony.
Right. Okay.
Asynchronous colors, they create a sense of harmony. And then so there's so much to it. It's like any subject. The more you peel back the layers, there's more to know. Yeah,
of course. So that's one of the reasons why because I've got a white background behind me. Obviously, it's hard to get rid of the brown there, but I try to not wear like bright colors against a bright background, because I sort of blend in, and that's not really what I want to do. I want to try and stand out so people can focus on me a little bit more. So I do sort of get that whole idea of it. You know, you've got the sort of the bookcase behind you, so you've got a brighter top on so that you stand
the bookcase is quite distracting. So I know that a brighter color will make me stand out against that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that it's different in different cultures as well. That must be really hard for like a worldwide brand to think, oh, well, in America my colors mean this, but then in Asia my colors mean that, and it's like, how on earth do we pick this thing, Anna? How do we? Because you mentioned like the colors and then the person as well, which sort of makes me sort of think, oh, well, does it is it an extension of the person? Is it an extension of the human? Because if there's a disconnect between how I come across, like I'm reasonably confident, and yet I'm not like shouty at people. So like if my colours were like dead bright and dead like confident feel and all those things, and then they hear me speak, it's like, oh, he's a bit chilled out, this guy. It's got nothing to do with what colours he's got. So is it about finding out what you naturally do as well, like the way you come across, and then you find that's something that you want to try to emulate with colours? Does it start with the person?
It's a really interesting question, and it's one that I go round in my head too. So I think some people's businesses, some people's businesses evolve, and especially with personal branding, the brand, I tell people all the time, you are your brand. It doesn't, colours do matter, but at the end of the day, you are your brand. So I think when people first come across you, they may be affected by the visuals, and visuals are really important, because if someone comes across you, they like browsing on Google and they go to your website, and the first impression they have is a visual impression. You've got milliseconds to capture their attention. So visuals can be really important in that way. If they've kind of been introduced to you by somebody that or they meet you in person, or like we were chatting earlier about video, if they can see you chatting, then I think the visuals can melt away a little bit because they're hearing you speak.
Yeah.
So
is it must be difficult for, so like we take an example could be McDonald's. We used McDonald's before. You're making me hungry now. But we've used McDonald's before. Like, I don't think many people know who owns McDonald's. But you go to another brand like Virgin, we know a lot of people would recognise Richard Branson as he walked down the street. But then, would Virgin's brand start off with Richard? I mean, we all know that Richard's a pretty outgoing guy, and Virgin's a worldwide brand that also has reasonably bright colours as well. So it comes across that it can work that way as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great synergy. Red, suits Virgin brilliantly. They're an energetic, passionate company, so I think red really goes with them. Yeah, there is. I think it's not a straightforward answer. I think colour is important, but then you can get really hung up on colour too.
Yeah.
So some people can spend ages choosing different shades of blue and, for their website or for something. And it's like, have a look through the colour site. I mean, I think we're going to go on and talk a little bit about it now, but I think really to help you choose the right colours that might help with your branding, if people come across you purely visually, then I think you need to understand who you are as a person, who your ideal client is, and kind of take it from there. Some people choose their colours without looking at the deeper kind of the deeper brand identity.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. Are there anything that we tend to get wrong with our brand? Is there any mistakes that you see? Are there any things that you think that's probably not the right way of doing it? And does it just stay with small businesses, or is this the same with bigger brands as well in terms of the mistakes?
So it's a great question. So a lot of the clients that come to me, there's two main different types of clients. So a lot of the clients that come to me are just starting out, and they need help with, they think they need to get photos done. That's the people that used to come to me originally. They want photos done. And we got chatting about branding, and that's when you start to peel back the layers and try and think, have you gone through a brand identity? What is your brand identity? What feeling are you trying to create with the people? What impressions you want them to leave with dealing with you? And then we kind of work through shot lists and everything. So I think people usually come to branding because they think the logo, the colours, and maybe a headshot is the brand. And there's no reason why they should know otherwise. If you haven't been in business, then why would you think that there's anything more to it than that?
That's a good point.
And so then I then would then point them to say, have you thought about what your mission is, what your values are, who you want to serve, what your clients are? I mean, there's some great activities you can do with people. I think we're going to go on to look at some of those. There's brand archetypes, which are fascinating to work with, and they're really interesting for people you can take quizzes for people to find out which brand archetype you are, and they can then give you a bit of guidance on your brand identity. So I think the big mistake is people just think it's colours and a photo shoot would be what I think. And I think branding is important for small businesses and big businesses. I think usually big businesses will have been through, you'll get to a certain stage, and if you haven't been through a brand identity exercise before, then you at some part during your growth you will get a branding strategist in to work with you and go through these exercises. Because I look back to my time in the corporate world, and I laugh about it now, but we'd get given these certificates that we'd have, that get handed around the office, and it'd be a mission, vision and value statement, and they'd expect you to pin it to your desk, and that was the mission and vision and value for the company. And I used to think it was just bullshit. It really was, because obviously the high up bosses, it depends on the size of the company, but I was talking about, these are big, like thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, and they want to create a mission for the company, but some of them were really poor. They were really poor, and a lot of the employees right at the bottom, then they don't buy into perhaps the same vision as the bosses have. But it's a really important thing to do, and I think some of the larger companies, they have a vision, but it's only for the company. It's not something bigger than themselves. I think to have a strong vision, it has to be something more than yourself, more than your company. So yeah, I think branding is important at all levels. But it's, I don't know if I hope that answers the question.
No, it's all right. No, it seems as well that just from what you said there, kind of like maybe the bigger companies are the ones that might look over some of the more deeper aspects, because maybe they don't think it matters, or it's weird really, because if you think about it, you can't expect somebody on the shop floor to feel the same vision as the managers and the people that run the company, and it's a weird. If they can make
it something bigger, a bigger mission, then I think it very much is the leadership. I think, if they can make it something that's bigger than themselves and get the people behind it, so like thinking about the environment. In fact, a lot of the bigger companies, they do try to bring in a bigger purpose, and, and the employees can get behind something. But when some of them are so dry and so it just, no one can get behind them, and everyone just ends up throwing them in the bin. It's just so yeah, I think it's really, I think it's a really important exercise to do, and good companies do it really well.
Yeah. Because you mentioned before we went on that you have an exercise for us to do. So talk to us a bit about what the exercise is, and then I'll shut up and you can take people through it.
Yeah, so I ran a challenge back in October, and it's aimed at people who either are just starting out in business and they've come across branding as something perhaps they should look at, but they don't really understand what it is, and perhaps they do think it's colours and a logo, or it's for people that have perhaps been in business a little while. And I typically see some people have been in a business and it's grown one way, they've evolved, and they've perhaps added another service, and they've got two different parts of their business and they don't know how to then bring it together. So I had a client the other day who's, exactly the same position. She's now stuck with different colours for different sides of her business, and she doesn't know how to bring it all together. So this exercise will, get the brain ticking over, get you thinking about branding perhaps from a way that you haven't thought about it before.
All right, so let's hear the exercise. So if you're watching live or catching the replay, then this is your chance to get out a notepad and pen, grab a coffee, chill out, sit down, and then Anna's going to take you through the exercise. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so if you can get a piece of paper, I don't know, an A4 piece of paper or a notepad, if you've got, split the one page into quarters. So put like a vertical line down the middle and a horizontal line across the middle. So you've got kind of like 4 segments. Yeah, and then you can turn it over, flip it over, and create another piece of, create another 4 quadrants. And then, number the quadrants 1 to 8, because we've got 8 different mini exercises to do. And at the end of it, hopefully you'll have a better idea about branding and your brand. So, yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do a bit of reading because I can't remember all of this. So yeah, in the first quadrant, yeah, I'd like you to think about what brings you joy, what inspires you. So the word inspire comes from Latin and it means to breathe life into. So when you're inspired, you literally feel more alive. So for the purpose of this exercise, I'm not talking about planning your dream holiday or driving off in a sports car, and don't get me wrong, those goals are really good to have, but growing businesses are tough, can be a tough thing. And it's good to visualize what you're aiming for. But the purpose of this exercise is to get you thinking about something bigger than material things, something bigger than you. It's connecting to a purpose that really lights a fire in your belly. So an example of this is one of my clients is a relationship therapist. And when I asked him what brought him joy, he told me that he gets couples to sit facing each other in silence. And one time this client started to cry. They had tears rolling down their cheeks. And they said, I miss you, to their partner. And he realized that his purpose is helping others to connect. So I'd really like you now just to spend some time brainstorming when you last felt joy when you're working with your clients. And yeah, so just brainstorm that. I don't know how much time you want to give it in between one, Mike, because a lot of people will be doing this exercise after. They could probably pause it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you sort of wait a little bit, give people a chance to pause and then sort of move on to the next thing, because what people that are watching live might want to do is do a little bit and then come back to it. So we want to allow for like people to pause it potentially as well, because if you wait for 10 minutes, they're like, okay, so when do we press play again? So yeah, so sort of if we think that we can go through it a little bit, and then people are watching live might want to do a bit extra once we've finished.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2. So what are you good at? So some people know themselves pretty well and can answer this off the bat, and others may need to ask their friends and family what they think they're good at. It's pretty illuminating to do this regardless. So if you're stuck with this one, put a post out on your Facebook page and ask friends what they think you're naturally good at. In his book, Finding Your Element, Sir Ken Robinson says that our element is the point at which natural talent and skill meets personal passion. If you can combine these in your life, you'll never work again. And if you combine these and make a profit, well, then you're onto a winning combination. So think about what you've always been good at. Is it talking to people, seeing patterns, opportunities? Are you a good listener? Are you good at executing projects with precision? Are you a good networker, a leader? The world needs all these talents. I love this quote. Civil rights leader Howard Thurman once said, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I couldn't agree more. I'm bringing this back to starting and growing a business. It's a journey, and it is, Mike, agree, it's a pretty tough one. So by choosing something you love and you feel passionate about, it will give you the energy and and the grit to carry on. So yeah, so what are you good at? So number 3 is, what will people say at your funeral? So now this one really gets you thinking. And you could also use it, if you don't want to think about your funeral, you could think about what would people say at your 80th birthday party. But, I sat with my dad for the last 2 weeks of his life, and it was heartbreaking watching this man with such a zest for life and enthusiasm say goodbye when he wasn't ready to. And the one positive thing that I took away from this was the perspective that it gave. you know, I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to go to my deathbed with regrets. And, you know, I really threw myself into my business. So what would you like people to say about you at your funeral, or what do you want to feel at the end of your life? Will you have lived a full life? Did you follow your dreams? Did you set big purpose? You know, did you have a big purpose and goals, and did you pursue them with passion? Did you take advantage of every opportunity that came your way? You know, how would you like people to describe you and what you meant to them? So while you're thinking about that, I was chatting to a friend, well, she was a client turned friend, and she had a great one for her tombstone. She wants her tombstone to say she lived. And I often come back to that one. You know, I want to live.
Yeah.
And it maybe sounds dramatic to envisage your death. But if you can, but I think it really helps you to get a real alignment of what you actually want to do with your life.
Yeah, I listened to an interview a while back. Apparently, I can't remember the software or the app or something. But if we say that we're going to live to, let's just say 100, hypothetically speaking, what it does is it tells you how many minutes you've got left. And obviously, it counts down to 0. So every time he wakes up, he checks it to figure out how long he's got left. And it was like, oh my God, that's a little bit OTT for my taste, but it just gives people a sense of, you know, a sense of perspective around time. I mean, it's weird because some people act like they're gonna live forever, and then some people act like they could die tomorrow. And my own personal take on it is they're both too extreme. Like if you act like you're going to die tomorrow or die next week, you'll do things without regret that you will probably regret if you survive it, if that makes sense. You go, oh, well, I might die tomorrow, therefore I'm going to do this, and this.
Yeah.
And then you have to live with the repercussions, right? Like you've got to...
Yeah, there's some balance, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it can be like your guiding, you know, some people, you know, your North Star can be your guiding, it's your compass, really. Yeah,
I think there's a difference between having a star to follow and having a compass, doesn't it? Because the star's external, the compass is you, it's internal, right? So I feel there's a definite difference between. That's why I'm a fan of goal setting, but I'm also a fan of you need to know which direction you're going because the goal can always change. You know, all of my goals have changed since 3 or 4 months ago. My goals have shifted, so it's that real sense of okay, and to figure out what we're aiming for, but then you need to feel okay with the change as well. The amount of people that struggle with that because they set goals but don't have any sense of who they are as a person. They've got no sense of what their best self is. Because my goals shifted once I realized, I've changed. You know, well, if you change as a person, then your goals will change. But if your goals stay the same and you change as a person, like the amount of people I've listened to this a lot, where like people, the people that used to say, "Oh, you need a business plan. You've got to set like your 5-year goal and your 10-year goal and all those things." The problem that I saw was when people think, okay, realistically or logically, and they always set something that they know they can achieve, which automatically means that it implies that you're the same person like 5 years from now. And I know that's not the case for me. It's probably not the case for you. So I think people have a real sense of, I think people need this shift, don't they? They need this shift of, it's more about you than it is about the goal or the next best thing. Because I've achieved some things and I realized that, they're just stepping stones to other things. Yeah, so it's a real weird situation to be in.
I think, I agree with you completely. So goals change. I've set goals in the past and So I did a real lot of soul searching when I left my corporate career 3.5 years ago. And I thought, wrote a load of things down that I wanted to do and had my sort of year plan. And, it goes out the window. You can go out the window quite quickly as you try something and you have to pivot because that doesn't quite work. And so I still think it's a good idea to have in mind, well, for me personally, I find it's useful to have in mind, where I'd like to get to. But don't beat myself up if it changes along the way, because life throws things at you, and things that you weren't even expecting come along, and you change as a person, you grow as a person, and your goals you had a year ago, 6 months ago, a week ago might completely change. So I think you have to not beat yourself up if your goals do change, but I do believe still in the power of setting goals.
The thing that I also like when you said that it's about how you would like others to describe you, because what that tends to do, at least when I did this ages ago, so it's kind of like there's a difference between something that's internal and something that's external, because you can do anything and someone can perceive you a different way than what you intended.
Yes.
So it's a way of like, it's the kind of joke of you could save people from a burning building and people will still think you're an idiot. It's just the way it is. So we can only do our best, right? We can only figure out. I'm a big believer in you can only do so much anyway. But at least if you know what the intention is, you know what the plan is, you know what you're trying to do. Sometimes that's all you can do. There's only so far you can take it before it's just like, look, they're not going to like you anyway. They're not going to like the brand anyway. They're not going to really commit to your vision, whatever you're best at, whatever you're trying to achieve. And you want to be okay with that as well.
Yeah, I was exactly what I was going to say. We can only have intentions of how we want to be perceived. And everyone isn't going to perceive you how you want to, because they're going through their own stuff too.
Yeah.
So I think we have intentions of how we want to show up, and then the people that are attracted to us, they become our tribe. They're the people that resonate with us and will follow us, and people that don't, they don't. So, and I try not to worry about it. It's like early on in my career, one of my bosses used to say to me, put your rhino suit on, Anna. And I am sensitive to how others perceive me, but at the same time I'm quite tough too, and if somebody doesn't like me, they don't like me, and I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, it's hard because for me anyway, depends on the person. So if they're complete strangers, I am perfectly happy for them to hate me. I mean, depends on how intense. But if they don't like me, they don't like me. And there's nothing I can try. I can bend a little bit. I am flexible. One of my key traits, I think, is being able to be flexible. But, there's only so much you can do before it starts negatively impacting you. And, I did write something about it as of recording this. I wrote a post about, how you can lose yourself by trying to please others. I was a chronic people pleaser. No matter what I did, no one was made happy. No one accepted it. No one was open to the idea of me trying to please them. So eventually I gave up. And the problem with that is people aren't happy either way.
Yeah.
You try and please them, they're not happy. You do your own thing, they're not happy. So it's like, look, you're just not going to be happy. There's only so far you can take it. And unfortunately, I went from one extreme to the other. And people don't like it. People don't like when you go from trying to do things for them and you're bending, you're breaking, you're sacrificing your own happiness essentially for the happiness of others, and they don't see that, which in some regard, like, you can't expect them to see it sometimes. So there's only so much they can, they're not psychic, they can't read your mind. Oh, you're really trying to please me here. Oh, great, yeah. It isn't how life works, right? We're not people We're not mind readers, are we?
No.
But it's like, well, again, it was because I didn't know who I was and how I wanted to show up, and I wasn't very intentional. I wasn't very, I mean, I was self-aware enough to know that I didn't enjoy my time pleasing people, but because I didn't know myself properly, I mean, no one really does when they're a teenager, but it was a bit excessive for me. It was a bit intense, to the point where now I know who I am a lot more. Now I am probably extremely self-aware in some regards. It's like I can only do so much before I'm just going to accept that you're not going to like me.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just got to be okay with it.
yeah, you do just have to be okay with it. And the thing is, some people do change. I mean, in my career, I've met people, colleagues that, you know, you first meet them and for all sorts of reasons, maybe you've come into the team and maybe you've come into a position they wanted, or, you know, it's changed the dynamic for all sorts of reasons. They might take you for the wrong reason. And then I don't like, naturally, I don't think anyone doesn't like, if they don't like you. So I'd go out of my way to, like, you know, get to know this person and for them to get to know me better. And a lot of the times it's worked out okay, but I'm also okay if people don't like me. That's just life.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward. I mean, there was a lot that can happen for a lot of people. There's a lot that happened for me. There was a lot of push pull going on, which is okay. It just makes it harder to navigate the more intense it is. You know, trying to stay in the middle, it's easier to do when it's not intense. You know, if you're a massive seesaw between pleasing people, making yourself happy, if it's like that, it's dead hard to navigate that. But if it's like that, it's a piece of cake. You know, if everything's more shallow, if you will, then it's easier. You feel better. You know, just I went through a phase of saying no to stuff and not explaining why. But then I realized that, well, people are more likely to accept stuff if you give them a reason why. There's a real sense of like, well, I can't do that because of this. People are more likely to be okay with that than if you just say, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Doesn't come across as positive. It feels like you care less. Because people used to say, didn't they, that say no to things without giving a reason why. The problem with that is that doesn't come across. It doesn't come across. It's off the back of not justifying your boundaries or not trying to justify yourself. Right? It kind of makes sense, but it doesn't come across positive. It doesn't come across like you actually care if you don't give them a reason. Like you're just saying no for no reason. You know, and it comes across a little more negative than, sorry, I can't do that. I have got a meeting to go to instead, or that's when I've got clients, or you know, it doesn't have to be like a life-changing reason. It just has to make sense, and you've got to come across in a way that I would go, but this, and this. It feels a bit easier to navigate that.
Yeah, I think communication's everything. You know, the more you could communicate with somebody, you know, they understand you. So
yeah, exactly right.
People aren't mind readers. So
no. So this is where this process comes in, because the more aware of it you are, the more consciously you can do this, the easier it'll be. And I mean, we're all a little bit frosty around the edges in that there's probably a bit of flexibility with all of this. But if you don't have any structure, you're all over the place. If you've got no structure at all, you're not aware of it at all, anything can happen. but if you're aware of what you're good at, what you enjoy, what inspires you, if you want to go down the funeral road, you can, or you just go down the road of, well, how do you want people to describe you and your brand and all those things? Not everyone's gonna, as we said, not everyone's gonna take it on board. Not everyone's gonna understand it, and everyone's gonna feel the way that you want them to feel. But if you've got an intention behind it, there's a lot less flexibility with it, and I guess more people will feel the way you want them to feel if you know what that feeling is. if you don't know what that feeling is, it comes across anyway that less people will actually feel that way if you don't know how you want them to feel.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You need to know how you want to show up, how you want to act, everything. And if you know that, then you can be intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from when I did this a while back, it made my decisions easier.
Yes.
Everything became so much easier. Like you would not believe how freeing it felt to actually think, right, well, I want people to feel safe. I want people to feel calm. I want people to feel a little bit energized, but not like bouncing off the walls. Like it didn't make sense for people to be bouncing off the walls because it's like, well, that's not very long lasting either. So you've got to tone that down. And as soon as I realized that, it was like, okay, so I don't need massively bright colors. My writing doesn't need to be like flying off the walls everywhere. It doesn't need to be like, I don't need to put on like massive parties and all that sort of stuff. It didn't make sense, and it wasn't who I was either, which sort of resonates quite well with the exercise that we're going through. So yeah, really interesting stuff to take people through this. I think we're up to number 4, are we?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so no, you're right. Branding it does help with decisions. So if you know what your brand identity is, you can make decisions a lot quicker. Anyway, yeah, number 4. So what are you really selling? So a good example here is Apple sell computers, phones and other gadgets, but what they're really selling is a cool self-image. And Nike sell trainers and sports clothes, but what they really sell is a belief that you're a go-getter, someone that sets their mind on something and goes for it.
Cool.
So you can see what you're actually selling isn't actually what you're selling.
No.
Another perfect example is Disneyland. They sell tickets to a theme park, but what they're really selling is family time together, reconnecting and making memories to last a lifetime. And people pay a fortune for it. Think about my family photography. I sold family photos, but what I was really selling was capturing moments in time, ones that they'll never get back, and beautiful legacy artwork to treasure for the rest of your life and to pass on to future generations. So what I'd like you to take a moment now is and think, what are you really selling? What are your clients' dreams, hopes, aspirations?
I quite like that actually. Like the whole sort of, you're not selling the thing, you're selling the feeling the thing gives them. And I quite like that. One of the things that I do have on that as a question for you, Anna, is how do we portray that with the brand? So I mean, it's probably easier with some things than others. How do we'll use Apple as an example, right? Because it's a reasonably common thing. I think with products, it could be a bit more difficult than services, perhaps. We'll see what your take is on it. How do Apple use the whole sleek design, making you feel good, feel like a sense of like pride, I suppose, around their brand? How do Apple do it?
So yeah, Apple's a great one. And so before Apple started portraying themselves with this cool image, a lot of computers, PCs, were sold on, they were widgets. It was features, they've got so much RAM, they've got, the processor is this, everything, it was all on the features of the product. And Apple came at it from a completely different point of view, and they would have cool videos with people, graphic design, fun, colorful images, young, cool, funky people, and they were selling the kind of the lifestyle that it was, the creative. They also had adverts on it. It was kind of like there was a bit of a rebel feel to the, they were thinking, we're different. It was all like weird, they were the, if you look at the brand archetypes, they were like the sort of the rebel kind of archetype. So they came at it, traditional computer advertising, from a very, very different angle.
Right. So it's a bit more subconscious then, isn't it? It's a bit more sort of, it's there in the background because of what they do. There's that difference between do you advertise the RAM? Do you advertise the features? Or do you show a video of, a guy walking through a coffee shop with an Apple bag and everyone stares at them, and it's the emotion on the guy's face of, yes, everyone's watching me go past, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
people buy based on emotion, but then they rationalize their decisions on the other things. They'll get sold an idea because it's made them feel something, and then they'll back it up. The logical part of the brain will then back it up, and then they'll go and read up about the techie bits. But it's the same with everything. People buy on emotion.
Yeah, I like that. And it's about I guess it's about like actually bringing out that emotion with the marketing, with the branding, with the way it looks, with the way it feels. It's about eliciting the emotion in the person. Yeah.
It's everything goes together. It's the words that they use, it's the imagery that they use. It's like we said, brands create a feeling, and they connect with people by creating feelings.
Cool. All right, we're on number, is it 5 now?
Yeah. So what makes you different? So have a think about how you approach business. What are your values? And this may involve doing some competitive analysis. Look at what others are doing and see what you do differently. Is there a gap in the market that you could potentially fill? One approach that's often used is create a system that you get results for your clients that is unique or proprietary. So if you think about coaches or consultants, they have their signature program and it uses a particular framework. And so the framework is proprietary to you. Mm-hmm. Think about diets. They all have the same goal, for you to lose weight. But think about how many different types of diet plans there are out there, all promising the same result, but they use different approaches. So there's the Atkins, the keto, Weight Watchers, cabbage soup, low carb. You get the idea. So you probably aren't the only person offering your service to people in the world, but what do you do differently?
Mm-hmm. As you said there, it might just be the way that you do it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Number 6.
Actually, if I just go back to 5, there was a quote that I've got. It was on the next page. So yeah, for service-based businesses, obviously your biggest unique selling point is you. You're unique. You have your own unique story, personality, interests, ways of expressing yourself. So get out there and be visible. Network, online, offline. People buy from people. It's so cliche, but it's true. Mm-hmm. A quote here from Jay Danzy is, your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after you have an experience with them becomes your trademark. I really like that.
It. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So number 6, why should people trust you? What can you talk about, add to your social media posts, etc., that will inspire trust and confidence in you and your service? Think about, what is your background? What stories can you tell that will engage your clients? What has your journey been? What experience do you have? What qualifications do you have? What training have you invested in? And a big one is, what results do you get for your clients? You should be sprinkling testimonials and case studies throughout your website. A lot of people I know have a separate page for testimonials, but you should be, sprinkling those throughout your website, throughout your social media posts. Don't just leave them one page. Also, if you've got some clients and they're happy to do one for you, create a video testimonial. You'll ask your clients to create a video testimonial for you, because they can come across as really authentic. If they can actually see someone talking about you and what results you've got for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just want you to do an exercise. Do an audit of your branding and marketing materials and see where you can add snippets of information that will inspire trust in people that come into your world. So another quote here, Zig Ziglar one: if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they will do business with you.
Yeah, I guess the trust element sort of works a few ways, doesn't it? Because you can trust the person as a person, but then trusting that person to help you get what you want comes across, at least in my view, it's a bit of a different thing. It's not quite the same as, like, loads of people probably trust me as a person that might not trust me in a I can help them kind of way. And then obviously I've got people that do. So in my mind, they're different things. Is that something you agree with? Does one precede the other? Do certain things help people trust you as a person, but not flip that into, okay, well, this has to benefit my business as well? What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I think they have to trust you as a person, and how you are as a person, how you show up as a person is one thing, and the results you can get people working with you, doing business with you, is a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one leads on to the other. If you're authentic, if you show up, if you say you want to do things and you do them, people start to trust you that way. And then it's demonstrating to people that you do get results, and that's demonstrating by the clients that you've worked with and getting testimonials. So yeah, that's how I think you can demonstrate. It's showing the results that you get, showing past work that you've done that proves to people that you can get results.
Cool. All right, we're on 7.
So yeah, a big one here, who are your customers? Who is your ideal client? And, if you've been in business for a while, then you'll realize just how important it is to really understand who your clients are. It's a game changer. So I'd really spend some time on this one. If you Google client avatar exercises, you'll find numerous, ones all over the internet.
Yeah.
Some of them are a bit more comprehensive than other ones. Some of them I sometimes think get you to look at completely irrelevant things. But I think the really main points you need to consider are, what are they struggling with? What are their fears? What do they want to achieve? What are their hopes? What are their dreams? Why would they love to work with you? What objections do they have to work with you? Is there anybody that influences, how they make their decisions? So yeah, those are sorts of things, you start to think about, and then you can take it a level deeper and start to think about, where do these people hang out? What do they read? What do they listen to? And you want to kind of get an idea of that, because once you've refined your message and your offer, you then want to go to the places where your clients hang out and put your message in front of them.
Yeah, one of the, just as you said there, but what their fears are and what their struggles are, does it matter in terms of how they describe them as well? Does it matter in terms of the words they use or not?
Yeah, so that's really a good point, Mike. So if you can, whenever you're thinking about launching a new product or service, a lot of people come up with ideas, and I'm guilty. You think, I've got a great idea for something, and you create it and you don't sell any of it. And it's probably because you haven't done any market research. So you may have identified an ideal client, but it's then really good to go away and chat to these, get on calls with some of these ideal clients and do a bit of market research to find out exactly what their problems are, and make notes of what their problems are, using the language they use, the phrases that they use, because one, it helps you to understand their problems better, but then two, you can use those words in your copy, that you write for your products, for your services, and it will resonate with your ideal clients.
Right, got you. Yeah, because it's almost like it seems anyway that you'd connect with them more if you use the same words as what they would use. They kind of relate to it a lot more. Yeah,
they feel you should have your ideal client feeling, oh my goodness, how on earth has she got inside my head? That's exactly how I feel.
yeah, I like that. Right, which one are we up to now? Is it the last one, or you've got 2 more?
Yeah, so no, we're on number 8 now. So last one, what is your look and feel? And this is probably what most people would think about branding, what is your look and feel? But I think you have to do a lot of the work, answer the questions before, this isn't just the only thing you need to think about. Yeah. So how do you want your brand to appear to someone who's coming across it for the first time? What impression do you want someone to leave with? And jot down any ideas that come to mind. Pick words that resonate with you and sum up, what your clients value about you and what you do. So for example, do you want your clients to feel that you're friendly, fun, and dynamic, or do you want them to feel that you're calm, collected, and professional? So have a think about that, and then you can go back and use this filter to choose things that you want to represent your brand. And it's not just the visual elements of your brand. You know, it's everything. It's how you show up. It's how you know, how you are with people.
Yeah, I like when you mentioned that you actually want to do all of these in order, and that number 8 is what people tend to jump to. Number 8 is what people tend to go straight to, don't they? They go, oh, we need the colours, we need this, we need that, we need... Because a lot of brands, they come across like anyway, because, you know, when you mentioned before, almost right at the beginning, whereby people do the values and the beliefs and they're all wishy-washy and vague and they don't work and no one really embodies them. I've got a funny feeling anyway that people do the brand psychology, like the color psychology, throw that out there and then go back to the values afterwards, and you wonder why it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, you're right. I think you need to start at the beginning. So if you've already got a business going and you've spent money on this and everything, you know, I would, you know, wait till it's the right time to, you know, to go back to it. Yeah. But if you're starting out, or if you have come to a point in your business where you desperately need to do a brand refresh because you've got different clients to what you had originally, then it's go back to the beginning and do the, you know, the vision and values, your ideal client. Because, and you know, another thing, a point we're thinking about is the clients that you had when you originally started your business. If they're still with you, you know, they change and grow and develop with you. So they might not be the same people that you had when you originally started out in your business.
Yeah, exactly right. That's why I tell the story on my podcast quite a lot, because my podcast has changed like 3 times in 2 years. It used to be based on the Facebook group that I ran like ages ago. And then my clients changed, so the podcast had to change. And then it was more, I don't know, like it's becoming more, like it changes often. The Facebook group has changed quite a bit. Podcast has changed quite a bit. What I speak about has changed quite a bit. The whole dynamic has changed. Now that doesn't come across because I don't know what I'm doing. That's not, it might look that way, but because it changes so often as I've grown as a person and as my clients have grown, and you know, the words I use have changed. I go deeper than I used to.
Yeah,
it's because of that everything changes. I mean, I'm not. That's why, like, you know, Apple's logo has changed recently. It changes all the time. Google changes reasonably often. I think it's just G now. So it does change and grow, and it does shift, and it does adapt over time. And yeah, I like it when you said that if you're doing a rebrand and you go all the way back to number 1, you don't just go, what's the look and feel, change that, and then it's done. Because it's like if you don't know how you want, get the notes here. If you don't know how you want people to describe you, if you don't know what you enjoy doing, you don't know what inspires you, you don't know what your mission is, then just from what you said there, you're not going to know how it translates into the other areas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. We've gone quite deep within the past sort of 45 minutes. Do you have any other things that you think, I really wish we could cover this? Is there anything that you feel that we've missed or not gone deep enough into that you want to cover?
I think just to say that branding and what you perceive of branding and what you think you might need to do with your brand will depend on whereabouts you are on your journey. So yeah, I think one of the things we chatted about before was about, if, you know, where could people get the best return on investment on, you know, on what to do with their brand, you know, where would they get the best return on investment, which I think was a really interesting question. So I'd say, yeah, it depends on where they are on their journey. So if they are starting out at the beginning, I'd really highly recommend go through these initial exercises, work out what your brand identity is before you decide to hand off any briefs to graphic designers, photographers, anybody like that. If you're further on in your journey, then I think if you've already nailed who your client avatar is and how you want to show up in the world, you've got all that nailed, then I think a really good place to spend your time is looking at PR. So I see PR as falling under branding, and I think that's, to get your message out in front of as many people as you can, that's where you should be spending your time. It's not a money investment, but it's a time investment.
Yeah. So was that like getting published in magazines and interviewed on podcasts and summits like this one?
Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing that we want to go down?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you start off with places, and you can build up to other places. So you start off with, podcasts and smaller podcasts. If you're not a big name, you're probably not going to get on the big podcast. To start off with smaller podcasts, and then you gradually work your way up. You get experience, you start to build an audience, and then you can work your way up to bigger podcasts, or, get on shows, smaller shows, and then bigger shows. And the same with magazines, so, you just start to build your way up to, perhaps being on, some of the big shows, TV shows, daytime shows, or ones that have a huge reach. So yeah, definitely.
It's interesting when we talk about media, because I sort of have conversations about this recently, because obviously the summits and podcasts, that's the sort of thing that I do. So over the years, I've become like a form of media, which is a weird situation to be in when you've gone from consuming so much to now, okay, people are going to start wanting stuff from me now. So it gets a bit weird. It's interesting when people say, oh, well, if it's not the Tim Ferriss show, I'm not going to go on podcast. It's like, well, for a start, he doesn't want you on his show. You're not going to get on a big name show. You're just not. You've got to get noticed first. You've got to be big before. As some people say, don't they? That, oh, well, I became big after I got on the show. And it's like, right, okay, I get that. But you've also got to have proof that you can handle it. Like Tim is a good interviewer. You're on the Joe Rogan show. He's a good interviewer. He does it for a living. He's a commentator. He speaks for like 6 or 10 hours at a time. And you're not going to be able to out interview him. You're not going to be able to cope with some of the more probing questions that you get asked. That's just the nature of it. So unless you can handle it, you shouldn't even apply. So yeah, I've been on a couple of like smaller shows and smaller podcasts, and I always ask people if they know the bigger names, if I can get in, but I don't expect to. Like, I don't expect to get on those places, because although I feel like I could handle it, and I've been on it enough now, I feel like I've got enough canned answers to last me a lifetime, but it doesn't change the fact that you've got to tick their boxes. Like, I did a bit of research into it, is that you probably get more benefit from being on 300 small shows over the course of, say, 3 years than you would being on one show that's a massive show, but nothing else happens. Because there's no guarantee of things actually benefiting you directly from it. So I thought, right, well, I'll do loads of small ones then. Sometimes you've got to accept that there is a barrier for entry for these things. I'm trying to get into places that say, oh, have you had your work featured in other places? If your answer is no, because you're trying to go straight there, you're never going to get in. It's never going to work. So I think it's good that you mention it, though, because people don't realize that it plays a part. I get featured in places sometimes. I have quiet months. I have a quiet 6 months sometimes, and then I get like 3 in a month. So it doesn't always matter as much where you get featured, as long as it's relevant. Like, there's no point to me getting featured in like a fashion magazine. It doesn't make sense. I probably could, I probably wear some decent shoes, but it doesn't mean it's going to benefit the brand as such.
Yeah, I think it has to be relevant, and I think you work your way up, and then gradually as you work your way up, you leverage it. So if you've been featured somewhere, you can put on your website and your social media, you can say as featured in, and immediately you are seen as an expert in the eyes of the existing audience you have, because to them, if you're being featured somewhere, you're seen as more of an expert about your topic than you were before, because somebody else has taken the trouble to interview and think that you've got enough to say about something. And then new clients that come into your world from listening to you on the interview, you know, they perceive you, hopefully, if you're not talking a load of rubbish, they perceive you as being an expert too. So, and then you leverage it. And then, you know, places, you know, if you can put media kits on your website, then that people, if they're looking for experts to speak about a topic, you know, you've got your media kit there on the topics you can talk about, the places you've been seeing, they'll go away. And if they want you on television, they'll go away and look for, you know, you should really give them places where they can look and see at you being interviewed, so they can see how you handle, how you come across on screen. So yeah, but PR is really important. As you know, you want to get your business to grow.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more popular, I've noticed. But I think you want to be careful as well. From my own experience, you've got to be, as going back to everything that we've said, is if you don't know any of these things that you've gone through, you don't know how you want people to describe you, you don't know how you want to come across, you don't know what your feel is, you don't know who you are as a person, you don't know what you enjoy, you don't know how you want to be perceived. Like you could go onto a video interview similar to this one, and you won't be comfortable in your own skin enough to know what to say, how to say it, how to come across. And it's difficult. The first videos I ever did was shocking.
But the thing is, though, I'd say everyone has to start somewhere, because you can have a fear of not doing it and it'll put you off. You have to start somewhere, and don't expect it to be perfect. You know, just try, you know, prepare, listen to the podcast or the video, you know, listen before you go on, get a feel for it, and do your best. And, you know, you'll do a few and you'll get better. It's like anything in life. You know, if it's something you want to do, you know, try it and learn as you go.
Yeah, in some ways, that's why I actually enjoy going on to the smaller media outlets, because it's practice for one. You know, if we do 100 or 50 of the smaller ones, great, loads of practice, and you're more likely to get in as well. So it gives you the high of, I can do this. Yeah. And then you can gradually start building up. The amount of times I've done something, looked at it and gone, it's a bit smaller than what I'm used to, but if I turn this down, then, you know, I'll lose the repetition. I'll lose the experience. I'll lose the challenge. I'll lose because you have to keep your eye in sometimes. Sometimes if you don't do it for 6 months and then you've got an interview, it's like, oh my God, I've not done loads of interviews. I'm out of practice. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I come across? I can't even speak properly. What's going on? And you think, well, if I did the smaller ones and maybe have my own thing where I interview people similar to this now, like, it just keeps the repetition going and keeps building that habit, and it becomes more familiar. It becomes something that you're used to. And I don't know if you notice this as well, but the comfort thing allows you to be your brand a lot more. Like when I was uncomfortable in my own skin, i.e. like low self-esteem, depressed and anxious and all over the place, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I couldn't be who I wanted to be, which meant that all of the things that we've just gone across on the webinar so far, I couldn't do those things. I couldn't have any control over how I wanted to be perceived. I couldn't have any control over what I didn't enjoy it, not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I wasn't comfortable. And I found that tends to impact everything else. Like people would think, oh, you're a bit serious, aren't you? I'm like, no, I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was like a brick wall because I was so nervous. I was like Frankenstein on the camera, and it just didn't come across in the right way. Not because I was hopeless. Well, I was, but it was because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't comfortable in that situation. And so that can have a big impact on it, can't it, as well?
Yeah, no, yeah, huge. So it's like I've chatted to people who, they haven't done a Facebook Live, and I talk to them about doing their first Facebook Live, and it is the first time you do one, first time you try anything for the first time, it's pretty nerve-wracking, but if you try, the more it becomes a normal thing for you to do, and so then it's normal, and then you're more comfortable and you're more natural. So yeah, I just urge people to get on with doing the first ones and just get better.
Yeah, definitely, because you're more capable of showing up as your brand when you are comfortable. I think that's a big thing, to particularly for me. And if people are watching this going, oh well, I've never done this before, so well, everyone was nervous, everyone was struggling, everyone found it hard. And I mean,
I was nervous before we came on today.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what's Mike going to ask me? And what am I going to go blank? Will I know how to answer? And you have all these thoughts, and you just think, no, come on, Anna, it's going to be fine. I know Mike, it'll be fine. Yeah. And I just do my best, and that's it. And you just start. I think too many people put it off, going for things they really want to go for based on fears, and you do have to just face them sometimes and just get on with it.
Yeah, I am conscious of the time as well, but one of the things that literally just came up now, so this is completely off the cuff, pre-warn you, you're probably going to hate me, this could be the minute where you do actually go blank, so pre-warn you, is, do you ever have, this could be clients, this could be things that you see anyway, where the branding goes too far? A bit vague, but what I mean is do you ever have people like hide behind the brand, or people that establish the brand and then they realize that becomes an expectation and it's hard to keep the brand up? Like, because I talk about it as it doesn't come from me. It comes from Tim Ferriss, that said that sometimes he's had people on his podcast and it becomes like the hug of death for those companies because they can't meet the expectations anymore. The business takes off. They get too many emails. He often says to his guests, don't give people your email address because you'll get so many emails, you won't know how to answer them. You haven't got the systems or the staff in place to meet the expectations. But I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, but the brand can do that. Like if you have a brand feel and a brand way of doing things, does that ever become an expectation for people? Does that ever become something that people stop being able to meet?
I think so, definitely. I think people, especially if people grow really quickly, if they scale really quickly, they can become completely overwhelmed. So I'm in lots of groups, and there was a lady chatting in one of the groups recently who this has happened. Her brand has blown up very quickly, and her health is struggling at the moment. She's in complete burnout mode and feeling that she can't, she's dropping things. She's not performing how she'd want to perform and serve clients how she'd want to, because she's, she has just scaled so quick. It's just blown up for her. So I don't know, in some ways you think it's a nice problem to have, but then you do feel from the other hand, because she is, she's very much a one person band still at the moment. So yeah, I don't know, you have to take guidance from people that you can trust. And if it is happening, then, take on people that, can help you in those situations, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange situation to be in as well, because it can happen. There's no doubt about it. And most of the time it's when something bad happens. It's when something negative happens and you've got to portray this image that you can portray easily when you're in a certain way or a certain state, or but when you find that you can't do that, that's when some of it tends to come in. I think it's worth just touching on, because some people might be struggling with the whole sort of the branding, and they might undersell it, or under commit to it because it becomes an expectation. You know, if you want people to describe you a certain way all the time and you have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month and you can't do that anymore, and it becomes like, well, should I just lower my expectations? So there's a real sense of that. I just thought I'd get your take on it before we dive in.
I think if you've got a brand and it's a personal brand, then it has to be you. It has to be the authentic you. If you try to be something you're not, then it's not that it's going to catch you out, but you just can't keep it up. So, you know, be yourself. You know, maybe you need to amplify it a little bit. You know, just because sometimes, you know, on camera, sometimes you have to have a little bit more energy. You know, amplify a little bit, but only amplify what you are. Not, you know, don't try and be something that you're not.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it's worth just touching on it because people that might be like, oh, well, what if it's too different from who I actually am and all those things. So it's worth just giving people like reassurance sometimes. Yeah,
personally, I wouldn't recommend that, you know, to have a complete alter ego, unless that is you, you know, unless that is you. No, because people are interested. You know, you look at some of the like performers. You know, they are one way on stage. You know, they do have this alter ego. They go on stage and they are, you know, this very flamboyant, you know, person. But then off stage, they're not. They're, you know, they're quite introverted. So there's lots of different facets to people. But I think you just, if you can just remain true to yourself, that's good advice.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's the same with everybody. Like I'm more amped up on stage because I'm nervous and
you've got the adrenaline going.
And it's that's it. But it's not a different person. It's just me when I'm on adrenaline. It's me when, you know, probably got very, very high blood sugar because of the adrenaline, and I'm like, come on, let's do this. Where when I'm doing like interviews like this one, it's a bit more calmer because it's not about me. It's about the guest. It's about the person I'm chatting to. So there's a very real sense of, it can be weird as well. If you're playing on the edges, like if you go from like an interview format like this to me suddenly being speaking on stage, it can feel like an alter ego when it's not. It can feel very different when it's not. And fortunately, I've got the mental clarity that I need to be able to play on the edges, where some people might have massive imposter syndrome when they start doing things like this. I know I used to. This is what the whole the whole conversation that we've had is all about. If you go back to basics and you go back through the 8 steps that you took us through, it makes coping with that a hell of a lot easier. All right, awesome. Before we dive into...
My laptop's about to die. I need to go and plug it in.
Oh, is it? Well, before we dive into... Deb might have some questions. Where can people find out more about you? So it's a chance to share websites or links or things like that.
Yeah, so my website is annafairs.com, and Facebook, if you look for Anna Fairs Branding Strategist, on LinkedIn, if you look for Anna Fairs. Yeah, so those are the places I'd look for me.
All right, awesome. Well, what I'll do, everyone that is tuned in live, we do have someone live. We do have Deb, as she likes to be called. Do you have any questions for Anna?
Hi, thanks, Anna. It's been most enlightening, so appreciate that. I just wondered, obviously, like you said, most people skip to the aesthetics of branding and avoid sort of the in-depth analysis of where it takes you to get there. But I just wondered if all that could cause overthinking and you end up not knowing which way to go with the branding if you just get overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, so analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. So it's where you don't do anything because you're overwhelmed by it all. So yeah, I see it. I do see it, but where I often see it is people trying to make decisions on colour schemes when they haven't done the original exercises on trying to figure out who you are, what your client is, what the look and feel you're trying to create to attract the client you want to create. So people, I don't know, say for example, you're a therapist or a coach, and you start to look at how you want to, the feelings you want to create. You might naturally, on the research that you do around colours, everything, lead you to think that green might be a good colour to use. And all the decisions over the colours that you've been trying to figure out, you know, just perhaps shouldn't even come into it. So I don't know, if you're getting confused and overwhelmed with the steps and exercises that you're going through, then perhaps, you know, you could go through it with somebody else, or get feedback from your audience. You know, one of the things I was given advice by one of the coaches, my early coaches, was, you know, take them on the journey with you. So say, I'm thinking this and this, you know, how, or, you know, what do you think? Or I'm thinking about this logo, this colours, you know, what do you think? And then you're being guided by your audience as well. I don't know if that helps, Debbie.
Yes, sometimes, and then other times, the more people you ask, you seem to like, do I put it in bold? Do I put it with a green squiggle on underneath or a blue squiggle? And
you know what?
The tiniest details, and it's like, who wants to be a millionaire? Ask the audience, and you get like 25% answer response from each people a quarter. And you just get more confused than ever, and yeah, Mike's looking horrified. I can understand. You can get a lot of feedback. I think you have to either go with your gut, take everything that you've learned and read, and, you know, go with your gut and just make a decision. You know, at some point you just have to make a decision and go with it. And the thing I think some people get worried about with making decisions is that they think it's set in stone. So whatever you decide, it doesn't have to be set in stone. In fact, you know, another piece of advice from somebody that I wish I'd got earlier, but I came to a bit later, was, you know, my first business cards, you know, I thought, oh God, it's a really good deal. I'll get like 500 of them made up. And I'd changed my logo by the time I'd only handed out about 25 of them. So it's like, you know, just, I think one thing is, you know, it's everything's not set in stone. Things are going to change, and you just have to make a decision at some point. Yeah, I made the same mistake with the business cards, putting too specific information that got out of date and stuff very rapidly. And I've had the things with dates, putting dates on things, and don't put dates on things either to start with. You know, keep dates off so you can use them for other promotions. I hope that helps. I mean, if you're really stuck, I think, you know, go to somebody that you know's got a good eye. You know, one of my close friends in business, she's the first to admit she just doesn't get colours. She just doesn't. You know, she's got lots of other strengths. She's great at, you know, managing teams, building teams, but she's not a very visual person. So if you know that's you and you're struggling, go to somebody that's, you know, that's what they're good at. Yeah, that makes sense. Even if it's not to pay, you know, not even if you don't have the budget for it, go to a friend who's wears stylish clothes, or a house you think stylish. You know, someone that's got. Some people have a natural eye for colours and style. They just do. They have. You know, some people have a natural eye for photography, but then there are rules that you can give people to become better. So you can learn some rules, but some people have an innate eye. So find somebody that you trust and ask them. Right, lovely. That's smashing. Thank you. You're welcome. Awesome. I hope it helps. I'm on 3% on my laptop.
Do you have anything else, Deb, before we finish?
I think that's all. Thank you. Yeah, it's been great stuff.
Good. I'm glad. It's nice. It's nice to chat to you.
All right.
Nice to chat to you, Anna. Thank you.
All right, Anna. I will let you go. It's been great to chat, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, you too. I look forward to seeing you at the end of January if you're going to be in Lanzarote then.
Yeah. All right. Speak soon.
Okay. Speak soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.